Yo, what's going on, world? It's your boy Poncho here. Welcome to episode 40 of the Encore Podcast. If this is your first time listening, this is a pod for artists, musicians, anyone with a passion for music and art that's trying to turn it to a full-time business. So if that's you, subscribe, tap in with the community. I'm here today with my co-host Cruz.
Poncho, what's up, bro?
Yes,
how you doing?
And Ivan.
We are here today with Ivan. This is our third co-host today. And today we are joined with two former artist managers, people who have done a lot in this industry and have a lot to share, a lot of stories to share. So we're very happy to be with you guys today. We have Marat Berenstein and Eliza Berse.
That works.
We're here. How y'all feeling today?
Feeling good. Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you for taking the trip up here. How long was the drive here?
It wasn't too bad. It was like,
We talk really fast, so I don't even know.
Oh, yeah.
it was like an hour.
Makes it go
and a half.
fast.
It was a
Alright.
beautiful drive. This
Yeah.
is a beautiful town.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're here.
We're here.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. So, in just a few minutes, could y'all both tell the people where you were born, where you grew up, and how you got started in the music industry?
I go first? No, you go first.
Okay.
Ladies first.
Well, I grew up, born and raised in Miami.
Okay.
I moved to New York when I was 18, when I accepted going to SUNY Purchase College. I saw the campus for the first time at orientation. I was like gung-ho about getting out of Miami. So I got my degree in artist management with a minor in journalism. It's funny, I actually wanted to go to school for arts and entertainment law. And I was like, I might as well just see what I went, like the world of like I went to school for.
Yeah.
So I had started managing bands out of college. I started out with a 12-piece funk band called Mocod.
12-piece.
Yeah.
What?
And
For your first act that you managed?
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
I did that, and I also did a 60-piece soul choir on campus called Soul Voices.
That's a lot of pieces.
So, and I was, and I was holding it down as a stylist at Bloomingdale's in Soho as the denim specialist on the third floor to like pay rent and hold it down. So I could just start to, wiggle my way and get that tipping point of like making it full time in the music industry while also managing bands and working a day job, and then like spending your lunch hour downstairs in the cosmetics section because you have a show later that night.
I just realized your mic is all the way down there.
Oh, should I move it?
Yeah.
Yes. But it's all right. It's all right. Keep on. Yeah,
I'm sure it'll be fine.
grab the entire
Yeah.
thing. You can grab the entire thing and move it up.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
fine. I
I'm
can
so
fix it.
sorry.
I can save that.
Yeah, it sounds a lot better when it's like
facts.
right.
You can
like
move it a
right
lot
here.
closer too.
Yeah, I would move it a
Yeah,
lot closer.
facts. A lot yeah, even more.
we're getting here.
More.
We're intimate.
Yes, there we go.
So much.
Good?
Yes, good call. Yeah.
Awesome.
I can save that. We're good.
So yeah, I got in through artist management and quickly realized that I loved booking and would kind of bounce back between booking and working on stages, working with different acts. Sometimes I would work on special projects, whether that was an album campaign or, a new release or a new kind of rebrand. And I've jumped in between working for myself for long stints and then working for different labels and management companies and booking agencies as well. So it's really nice as an artist manager. I think it's really important to have that perspective of really wearing all of those hats, because when it comes to being a well-rounded person and representing an artist, to have that gives you the understanding of what your team looks like, who your artist is and how they need to be supported, who their market is and where you should go and find them. Like, you really can gain that trust and understand that artist's authentic vision and like what their goal is, when you've played all of those roles. So
Okay.
in short,
Definitely makes sense. There's a lot I wanted to take from that, but I will let Marat give his background first, and then
Nice
we'll get right into everything.
Cool. That was great.
Yeah, that was great.
I was born in the Ukraine.
Okay.
Came here when I was 7 years old. Grew up in Brooklyn. Lived in Ohio for a few years.
Where in
I
Brooklyn?
didn't know that.
Yeah. You learned something new. That's
Where in
why we do
Brooklyn were you?
podcasts. Huh?
Where in Brooklyn were you?
Sheepshead Bay.
Sheeptoe.
Yeah, and that's where my family still lives. But moved back from Ohio middle of the 8th grade. Grew up for the rest of my life in New York. Went to Columbia. Got this crazy opportunity to go on the road with Art Garfunkel right
Love
after
that
Columbia.
story.
Yep.
So good.
Just became his personal assistant. Didn't know what I was doing. But it was kind of like throwing me into the deep end of the pool and making me learn how to swim on my own. And I
With one of the biggest acts in the world.
was one of the biggest acts in the world.
Just
and
right
I
away.
needed-
First opportunity in the music industry.
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
right
yeah.
into it.
So I'm grateful for
Yeah.
that. It was a crazy experience, but I got to see touring at the highest level. I got to see one of the biggest artists in the world move around the world at the highest level, and just really kind of learn, right? Like learn the hard way. And then I just was super duper inspired I was inspired by music licensing because Simon and Garfunkel licensed a lot of music for a lot of money in a lot of things, from movies to TV shows to commercials and advertisements, and they still do. I mean, they made classic music, right? Timeless. And so I was like, I want to learn music licensing. I want to learn sync licensing. I want to start managing acts. I want to use music licensing and sync licensing as a means to an end. And so I just went out and I just did that. And I did it in the hardest way possible. I just started like reaching out to people in LA and building relationships with music supervisors. And I started managing.
So
and I was
the hardest way possible.
Meaning I didn't intern anywhere. I didn't get an entry-level job anywhere. I didn't like study under like a mentor. I didn't like apprentice for anyone. I just said, I'm going to do it. So I just started like cold emailing people, right? Just like you just going at it yourself. And the kinds of acts that I was looking to manage and look after, to me, I wanted them to make music that was, we were just talking about this before we started recording, that was sample free, right? Because I didn't have the resources to clear samples. We didn't have any legal. We were just like, it was just us like this, right? With a computer. And we were pitching music and eventually started landing. And so then I picked up a few other clients and then I was repping a really cool label for music licensing at the time. They were called Decon Records. Today they're Mass Appeal. And then I was managing and other artists and growing my business and kind of doing well. And then this awesome opportunity happened where I was asked to become a teacher at the Clive Davis Institute at NYU, which is an industry program, and every teacher there is active in what they do. And so I went and I did it for 7 years, and it was probably the best 7 years of my life. And some of my former students right now I get to like root for at the Grammys, right? They're literally winning Grammys and headlining Coachella.
So cool.
Yeah.
Crazy.
You organize some really cool events and shows over there too. Like, I don't know if you saw that when Pharrell went to NYU. Didn't you organize part of that when
We
Pharrell
made that
went over
happen.
there?
Yeah, I made that happen. Brought Pharrell to the program.
One of my favorite moments.
And that girl,
and
I love that video.
It went viral, and a star was born. One of my students went viral from that video, and she just headlined Coachella. I saw her play SNL. Her name is Maggie Rogers.
She did? Oh,
yeah, she's out of here. But there's so many others. Nisha Charles and Topaz Jones and Kia Victoria. Take a day trip. Take a day trip. Those are my guys.
Yeah, they're on
they were in my
world.
class. Like, they're amazing.
Wow.
And I get to be a fan. I get to be a friend, a fan. I get to root for them like everyone else. But I know that journey. I remember when everything Take a Day Trip said they would do. I remember their deck for that, like their presentation. They were like, we're going to do this. And the only thing that was missing was Lil Nas X, right? And I'm like, oh my God. And
wow.
they, it's just like they envisioned it and executed it and delivered it, right? I left the Clive Davis Institute in 2018. I managed a few of my clients after that. And then I left management altogether in 2019. And in 2020, I went to work in tech and I headed up artist relations and partnerships for an audiophile app. And I left that gig earlier this year, and I'm currently producing a music conference. It's going to take place November 28, 29, and 30 of this year.
That's so soon.
It's called XP Music Futures. It is in Riyadh, in Saudi Arabia. It's open to all. Tickets are on sale. I will hook anyone up here who wants to go.
Hey, okay.
It's a little bit of a long flight, but
Yeah.
I'm really excited about it. I'm working with a really great global team. If you asked me that I'd be doing this, I would have never imagined it. But it's a beautiful country, beautiful culture, beautiful people, and music is super new. And so it's just an exciting opportunity to kind of help bring culture and music, and just be part of an awesome idea to create a music conference, that's like year two in a place that didn't really have a music conference before that. So super excited about it.
That's awesome. Yeah.
You want to kick it off?
Yeah. What runs through both of your backgrounds is that you guys have a propensity to help artists and do all that you can to sort of make projects come to life and ideas come to life. So what is it about an artist or a creative that would make you want to invest your time
That's one of my
and maybe your
questions,
money into them?
Oh my gosh. Do you want to answer that first? Go ahead.
I just have chills because it's such a personal, and it can be in some ways just so spiritual, because I think we all understand how live music can impact us personally, how it can bond us, how it can introduce us to new things. So I find that when there's an artist with a message, a sentiment, who understands the responsibility of having a voice like that, a stage like that, how they choose to connect with their audience, if I can get behind that, then I feel like my everyday has purpose. And if that artist inspires me, the way that they do, then if I uplift that artist's career, then I can then provide the opportunity for other people to feel cradled by those lyrics, to feel heard, to feel reminiscent when they hear something, to feel excited to like share it with somebody else, or to just have that new song that they just like play on repeat for the next, 3 weeks. But it really comes down to, what their message is and what their purpose, what they feel their purpose is. Sometimes I feel a lot of artists are like not to get like too out there, but almost like a messenger of something greater. Like you see, sometimes it's not even a lyricist, it's a musician, and we're like, where does this come from? It's like maybe it's a new sound or a new way of approaching something or a new perspective or a new kind of a collaboration that's developed something new. And you're just like, there's got to be some greater, like, where are you pulling this from? You know?
Yeah.
And
That's
sometimes I feel like I'm kind of like the X-Men and I'm like out to like look for like my aliens without having to like murder them. But I'm like, that sounds awful. But it's like I feel like I'm looking for aliens because it's like you're getting this energy from somewhere greater than yourself. And so to uplift that, I think is a great responsibility and something that I feel very grateful for in my position is having that responsibility.
Yeah. What's interesting about your answer is you didn't really touch on anything related to like work ethic or like respecting your time or like anything that comes. Like you touched on a lot of the art. So like I'm sure Marat, you're gonna mirror a lot of things that you say. So maybe if you want to touch
literally on, like I love
going with the boundaries.
Not yet. It's not that part of the conversation yet. No. I love the alien analogy. I used to use it because I just think that there are some humans that just have like a God-given talent. Like they were born with it. Can you develop it further? Absolutely. Can it be trained and explored? And can they build on that? 100,000%. But I don't think if you're not born with it, it's there, right? Like we can point to some of our favorites and be like, you're an alien. Like you're not a regular human. You're like pulling this from somewhere, right?
And there's something about seeing that from someone who maybe quite hasn't had that stage for a lot of other people to see it. So like, especially at NYU, you see those people and you're like, oh, you're special.
We saw that every day at the Clive Davis Institute, literally every day, every student that walked through those doors, because the filter was so high in order to be considered, in order to get in. You have to pass through so many different loops and you have to be so good at what you do that it was only a matter of time before a lot of these students are just becoming full-on success stories. It was not a matter of if, it was a matter of when.
Wow. A lot of the students from NYU ended up doing something big with their careers.
Yeah.
Really?
Absolutely. Big time.
In a big way.
Absolutely. Like some of the ones I just named, right? But there's so many more. It's just a matter of when, right?
Yeah.
And like, I think it's funny that you said that the work ethic and the boundaries, those two things are not connected to the talent whatsoever, right? And sometimes you see people, and we all know those people that are so talented, but it's just like energy that can't be contained, right? Because they don't have the work ethic and they don't have the boundaries and they don't have the discipline, right? They don't know how to walk that straight line, right? Like how to answer an email or you know what I mean? Like I'm
definitely
right, but their talent is without bounds.
Would you work with someone like that?
No.
Not unless you want to regret your every day for waking up. You're like,
God bless the managers that do. But you can't, right? Because how do you manage Kanye?
Yeah,
he's a genius, right? He's unwell, but he's a genius.
That's
can you imagine? Can you imagine managing him right now? Like he said it.
I can't. White Lives Matter shit.
But that wasn't. But that wasn't the first. You know what I mean?
No,
like, he literally said, "I can't be managed." He admitted it, right? So he's just the example that's in my head because of the what's going on now. But he's got one of the greatest discographies in hip hop, in pop, in music. Period.
100%.
Undeniable. How many classic albums, right? Like he's incomparable, right? So there's so many of those, I think, artists that we can go through as fans and we can be like, oh my God, they're so incredibly talented and incredibly gifted, but you cannot, it's like, can you manage the sun? No, you're going to get burned. Like you're going to get burned looking at the sun you know what I mean? Like, it's just like that. You cannot go even near that. For me, it was, all right, is it someone less talented or, but there are also a ton of examples of people equally talented, but do have the boundaries, do have the discipline, do know how to get things done and how to contain that energy in the right way and channel it in the right way. And so I would look for those. But for me, the biggest filter was I needed to be a fan. Like I needed to be more than a fan. I need it to be a stan of your work, and it has to be weird and unique, and like only I get it, right?
Yeah.
Like only I get it, and I'm gonna help the world see you for what you are, right?
For sure.
Do you feel like you need that in a manager? Like, you need it? Yeah.
Yeah. I think your manager should be your biggest fan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is what makes it so hard.
Yeah. I can imagine.
So let's say an artist is considering getting a manager, right?
Yeah.
From your guys' perspective, what would you think would be a red flag in a manager that an artist should stay away from?
Oh my goodness. So many.
So many, really.
So many red flags. I mean, May is a good time to bring this up, but we were talking about this on the way over here. I'm a believer of dismantling that paradigm. The artist manager paradigm. I think it's broken.
Explain.
Can you elaborate?
So the current paradigm, an artist finds a manager or a manager finds an artist. They sign a contract, whatever shape or form that is. Maybe it's a real legal contract, might be a back of a napkin, right? And then they say, okay, we're going to go do this, right? And it's typically what? It's a commission, right? It's maybe 10 to 20%, and they can figure out, is it net? Is it gross? All that stuff. That's cute, right? But there's no IP. They don't own anything, right?
The manager
and the artist as well, right? So it becomes a 20-80 split, right? So they make $100, the manager gets 20, the artist keeps 80, right? But if there's costs, if they took a hit, then they don't make any money, right? But at any point in time, the manager's working crazy hours. The manager's working so much, and some of it is not producing results because maybe the timing is off. Maybe it's the wrong song. Maybe it's the wrong release. Maybe no one cares. Maybe there's 100 million reasons why, right? The manager is still working, right? Emails and meetings and Zooms and this and this and this and that. And at any point in time, that could become fruitful, right? And they could make money and start building and building. But at any point in time, the artist can turn around and say, deuces. We're not good. I want to go with her. She's a better manager. She promised me more. She got into my ear. She, right? Or she's great. I just think she's an awesome manager. You suck.
The longevity of the artist-manager relation is never...
It doesn't last. And then so you put in all this work. So imagine you as a manager, you've now been working for years. You have no health insurance. You made a few $100
for a lot of time.
You got something to talk about. Your IG bio's lit, right? Like, cool. Okay, you got the right. But artist turns around and they go, I don't think we're good anymore. We're not gonna continue this relationship moving forward. Now, there's a contract and you could pursue action and you could do all that stuff. It sucks. None of it is fun. It's sometimes indefensible, right? The contract could be bad. And what are you really fighting for? An extra few $100s? Cool. So you get it. So the artist gives it to you, right? And they moved on. But all that time you put in, if you reframe that in another business model, if you and I, instead of being manager artist, we're co-founders of a startup and we put years in, and then you get exited as an artist manager for whatever reason, right? You keep your shares. So if anything good happens with that company and that equity becomes valuable, those months, years you've spent putting in blood, sweat, and tears all of a sudden have some meaning behind it. Now, the assumption is that startup gets sold or that startup gets an investor or they start making money, but you have a piece because you were a part of that story.
Yeah.
Right? In the current paradigm, there's no equity. There's no intellectual property. There's just your time, your heart and soul. And if it doesn't work out, and 99% of the time it doesn't work out,
is it that high?
You're out, right?
Yeah.
And so you wasted your time. You are no longer the biggest fan of this artist. You're like, oh, they actually, I don't like
It's
that.
actually like, let's just say 9 times out of 10, artist-manager relationship doesn't work out.
I mean, I know I just made that statistic up. But
it seems like
there are those situations where it's like a manager and their artist will stay together for an entire career, multiple decades. But I'd say the majority, there's a shorter lifespan than I would say an entire career.
So glad you brought that up. You know why? Can you name one? Can you name one? And can you name one? And I was thinking about this in the car up here.
I don't know too many managers, so I can't.
Can you name? And that's fine if you can't, but maybe you can. Or you can. Can you name one example of a manager and an artist? Let's say 10 plus years.
Drake and Future the Prince.
I was gonna say possibly Ludacris.
That's about
and
it.
his manager.
And Shaka.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wouldn't. I'm the wrong person to ask.
So okay. So
Luda
and Shaka.
The only person that comes is Drake and his.
Okay. And Drake and I mean I feel I don't know about Luda and Shaka, but these guys definitely started off as friends before.
Yeah.
Right. But that's 2.
Yeah.
Okay.
Either way,
Awesome.
your points made for sure.
Can you name another one?
So
like,
But I think they're so
Probably.
far
Yeah.
and few in between.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Maddie Wyclef, maybe, right? Like
not even.
not even 10 years, right?
No,
Because
not
he
even.
had previous management.
All right,
before
so
that. Scooter,
Justin,
Justin, right? There's just so few of them. That's all I'm going off.
Why do you feel like you can move that a lot closer to like a lot? Yeah. Why do you feel like so many artist manager relationships fall apart?
Why do I feel like that? I
Yeah.
feel like that because I think the reason something doesn't work out most of the time is because it's a broken model. It's a broken system, which is why I believe it needs to be dismantled. Because you can recreate that entire model. It doesn't even, I'm not even focusing on the 2080 because I think it shouldn't be 2080. I think it should be more because I think an artist manager works more than 20% of the time. Now I get where a creative and an artist might say, yeah, but this is my soul. And sure, but let's forget the split for a second. There needs to be ownership. There needs to be
Of the music, of the masters.
not necessarily of the music of the masters. You can create a company, right? And you could, like, the artist can own 80% of the shares in that startup, and the manager can own 20% of the shares in that startup. And if they leave, they still keep that 20%. And they could get diluted, but they have something.
okay.
Right now, if they leave, whether they're fired or they quit or the artist just changes their mind or goes with a cooler manager, you got nothing. You're left with nothing. You're left with stories. You're left with maybe a lawsuit. That's awful. The reason I think they don't work out is because it's humans. It's just like any other human relationship. Like sometimes relationships don't work out, right? But it's sort of, we've taken this thing that's so personal
It's very
and
personal.
so intimate,
Yeah.
right? And so intense. Because as a manager, you're their best friend, you're their
talking to them every
psychologist,
day.
you're their parent, you're their sibling,
Absolutely.
you're their everything. That's a lot. That's a lot to carry, right? And that's why I think it's a broken system, because if they just get tired of you, by the way, I'm not in no way, shape, or form am I putting this on the artist. I'm a manager that left my artists, right? I couldn't do it anymore, right? It's just, it's A, unbalanced, and B, broken, and C, there's no foundation. There's nothing that it exists that will allow
Makes
it
sense.
to kind of have some kind of return or some kind of lasting
Yeah.
product.
What were the reasons that you left your artist?
I felt burned out
I was gonna say
just
burnout.
as a
much.
human. Burnout's probably the number one, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're burnt.
Yeah.
Just
You ever
too
have a
much.
friend and you're just like, dude, I'm tired of you?
Yeah.
But with that,
Yeah.
you could just like you could just be like, all right, well, we're not gonna hang out for a couple weeks, right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, right? Like, it's just like any other human relationship. Like, you can get tired of the person. Why are you tired of the person? It's unhealthy. It's unhealthy to, you're not like romantically linked with them. That's not your family member, right? But it's unhealthy to have that kind of 24/7 access,
Always availability.
exposure,
Oh, I sleep
and-
with my phone by my head.
and
literally on call all the time.
responsibility. You're the first phone call.
yeah.
It doesn't even have to be bad. You're still the first phone call. Right. And I think we kind of like, we programmed ourselves in this business to think that this is normal. We programmed ourselves to say that we romanticize it. But then we can't name more than 3 examples with a room with 4 people that know their stuff. We can't name more than 3 examples of an artist and a manager relationship that lasted more than 10 years. We can name companies that lasted more than 10 years, right? We can name
100%.
brands that lasted more than 10 years. And yeah, founders leave and that kind of stuff, but they leave with something. That's my entire point.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
there
makes
is
sense.
absolutely no legal reason, correct me if I'm wrong, there's no like structural reason that this paradigm can't be redefined. We just choose not to do it, right?
Things in the music industry move slow. That's an entire different convo that we can get into.
For
but-
sure. How about this? I remember I was teaching a class in artist management at NYU, and I thought like a really great example of like an artist and their manager was Chance the Rapper and Pat the Manager, to the point where like their names were like, the artist, right? And I remember putting up an interview with Pat, and we were going over the kinds of things he was talking about, and I was like, this is great. They're starting a foundation, they're starting a company, a compound, and they're gonna give back and all this sort of stuff. A year later, right? Chance the Rapper and Pat the Manager part ways.
Yeah.
I'm like, does he keep his name? Is he still Pat the Manager?
One half.
And look, I don't know them, and I'm all due respect to them both, but like that's an example where they like branded themselves as like,
And they still fell off.
and they did
Yeah.
it, and it's like
Definitely.
you need to be super lucky, but I don't think that's a good business model to rely on super luck, right?
Right.
Like,
Yeah, no. What if you want to contribute something, feel free.
I was just gonna say I really like the question of, because I'm always looking out from the artist perspective and like what would I say, what to look out for as far as like a red flag. It's funny that you said dating, because when you start a relationship, starting to court between artist and manager, it is very much like dating, because like we said, you are talking to them every day. You do genuinely have to have that kind of care outside of their music. You have to uphold them so that they can be the greatest they can for the things that you need within that area. And something that I would say is have the kind of discernment to know, of course, it's a business, and at the end of the day, you're going to have certain goals that you need to obtain, but you just want to make sure that that manager wants to uplift you. There's a balance of wanting to uplift you and genuinely believe in you, rather than like they have their motives and you're going to fill that. Because I think that's where an artist feels that they have this scale of having to lose themselves in order to gain opportunities. And then it just starts this whole shift of you're deconstructing and changing the very thing that upholds it. So whether you're going to genuinely uphold that and evolve that is one thing, but to come in and, you know, with your own kind of initiatives, you just want to make sure that it's a healthy balance, and that manager really wants to uplift who you are and what you want to do and what your vision is. And they might have to tailor that because they're coming in on the business side and that's their responsibility, but you want to be able to have that trust that that's exactly they see the vision.
That's
you
major.
know.
Or like, just to add to that, like the most common thing I ever heard, whether it was at NYU, at Clive, at just in New York, or just knowing on the internet, right? Just knowing young artists and young creatives. And tell me if you've heard this. I know you have. It's an artist, they're super dope, and they're just starting out, and they're just kind of getting things going, and then they go, "Oh, but only if I had a manager."
Yeah, I mean,
only if I
most
could
artists say that. Most artists say
that's
that.
What, right?
Yeah,
so
Only
sure.
30 artists a day. Like,
only if I had a manager, and the problem begins there because it's a misalignment of expectations, because that artist believes that the reason they're not successful, the reason they can't go to that next step or that level, is because they don't have a manager.
You know what I've learned.
It's
about
probably
that
not the reason,
too?
right?
It's 100% not the reason.
Not the reason.
And what I've learned about that, and I'm sure you could attest to this as well, like there's just a huge gap in knowledge about how to actually go about winning in the industry. Like there's no school for this. Like you want to be a lawyer, you go to school. There is, but I mean, I'm not going to argue that.
You don't learn how to be a music lawyer in school, but keep going.
It's just the fact that it's like you want to be a doctor, you go through the curriculum, you take ethics class, you learn this, that, and the third. You want to be a rapper, you go on Amazon, you buy a mic, an interface, and a laptop, and you're a rapper. So it's just a lot of people just don't know what they're doing.
People just don't know what they're doing. I think the foundation breaks at the beginning because of artists and managers, right? Because of what I just said, because artists are like, only if I had a manager, only if I had an agent, only if I had a publicist. And then you go to them, okay, here's how managers get paid. They take a commission. Agents take a commission. Publicists are on retainer. Lawyers, retainer, commission, right? Can you pay these people? And the answer is no. And it's like, well, how are you going to employ people you can't pay? You want them to work for free? Well, it's sweat equity. Okay, I love that word equity. Can we take the sweat out of it, right? Like, can it be real equity? Can we create like a company? Can we create? Can we create some? Can we create? Oh, we're just getting started. The Starbucks is definitely kicking it. Can we create like a real thing where it's real equity? Why don't we do that? Like, why are we doing this sweat equity thing? Because we were taught that phrase somewhere, like watching hustle porn, right? Like, that's crazy. It's crazy. But this idea that sweat equity, you have to like intern for free. You have to this. No other industry has interns that work for free. You don't work for free as an intern in tech. Yeah. Wow. You don't work for free as an intern in film. You don't work for free as an intern in tech. You don't work for free as a paralegal, right?
Oh,
like
yes,
you have some, you might have a stipend, you have something.
Yeah.
We decided that you have to prove yourself. You have to come in early, and you have to leave late, and you have to bring everyone coffee, and you have to do this and this, and then you have to take abuse.
Yeah.
And then you have to work with
I have a theory for that. I'm unless you're going to say. I have a theory for that. It's because to me, right? I want you to give your opinions on this. I feel like that happens because the music industry is so desirable that people can get away with this shit because people want to be in it so bad.
Google is
so
desirable.
glamorized.
Guys, Google is desirable. Apple is desirable. Working for big tech is desirable, right? Because Google's cool.
I mean, for the money, yeah.
They pay their interns well, right? Like working at Universal Studios is desirable if you're a film buff, right? Like you get paid as an intern there, right? Like for some reason in music, we were just like, no, you got to intern for free and you got to keep interning for free until we decide that you are no longer interning for free. And you're like, how long is that going to be? Like, where is this, right? Where is this going?
Yeah. I think one way to kind of close that gap though is, I guess speaking of boundaries, one of my boundaries is, I like to consider myself someone who definitely lives in the business world, but is like by trade kind of a out there kind of creative type heart, very playful and out there. But my boundary is I need an artist who I can also have level-headed business conversations with. Because if I can't have straightforward conversations with you, then I can't get on the same page and move the needle the way that I need to, or feel like I don't need you to just trust me that I'm taking care of everything. I want to lay everything out on the table. And this is very much a part of you. That doesn't mean you have to be CC'd on every email, but I want you to understand the work that I'm doing. And so I think part of that bridging that is I always take an extra kind of care or an ear towards an artist who has doubled as managing themselves at one point. I think it makes them
I was going to ask you that.
Way better at being able to communicate what they're looking for and how they can be best supported, for sure. And some managers, some artists say that they feel really, and I understand this perspective as well. They say, well, what if I'm hitting up a venue and I'm going to tell them to book me on behalf of myself? And I've had artists that I've worked with in the past that have played arenas, and I've talked to them about this, and they're like, we just made a band Gmail and said we were like Patrick the manager. Like no one's ever gonna,
We've had an artist on the show that's done the same.
Yeah, so it's you make it happen. And in today's world, there's no reason that someone should say, if only I had a manager. To me, it just reads, not that you aren't hungry enough, but you don't know how to have that balance. You can't, if you're not in a place where you can't always live in the creative world, then you either have to build your team or know how to support yourself, with that balance until you find that manager. And, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know. I'm
like, dismantle the system.
Last
they had good questions. I'm like, no, break it down, rebuild.
All right. If you had to put a percent on, we have 100 artists in the room, how many of them are business savvy?
We have 100 artists in the room.
What kind of room we talking?
That's a really good question.
We're on Dykeman. No, we're not on Dykeman. We're in Williamsburg. We're chilling. We have 100 artists here in a room in an open auditorium. How many of them are business savvy?
I think in today's world, like you said, you can go on Amazon and get a mic and be, a rapper, a podcast person. I think a lot of people have an entrepreneurial spirit, especially after lockdown. People are like, well, I'm going to do something. I'm going to start that podcast. I'm going to work on that album. So I think more people have leaned into that and understanding their power to move the needle themselves, which has been really cool.
I think the percentage would be more than we would think. I would even go as far as to say everyone's business savvy to some extent. Maybe less
you would
than
say that?
Yeah, but artists put on that hat and they're like, I'm gonna play stupid. And they're like, I'm in the studio, you take care of my emails. Don't even CC me.
Is it playing stupid or is it just being lazy?
Sometimes it's both.
It could be both. But again, I think that this was taught. It was taught to us this way, right? Because I think we all came up studying the greats, reading the books, watching the documentaries, reading the magazines, just being fan. I grew up being a fan of the business, especially hip hop, right? Where it's like the most entrepreneurial of the genres of music, right? Like there's no more entrepreneurial genre than hip hop.
Why is that? I'm interested in why you think that. I never really thought about it like that.
That's a great question.
Yeah, now that you mention it, I can see it, but I
agree. I've never thought about that before.
Yeah.
I mean, when you start thinking of the moguls, right, that started everything, right? You start going through the list. Jay, Puffy, right? Like,
and that's
Beyonce now, right? Like, it's just
more opportunities for placements as well because it's such a big genre.
Because I think maybe the idea is because hip hop came from nothing. It's a derivative art form. It had to be built on scraps, and people just became scrappy and
then you
started,
have the crossover with like fashion,
and then crossed over into fashion because hip hop rules the world, right? Which is awesome, and it just like people just had to. I think it was more like, all right, you guys aren't accepting us, so we're gonna do it ourselves.
Mhm.
That's,
That's a fact.
that's
Definitely
probably
makes
the
sense.
answer, right? But I think that we taught ourselves this, that like, you have to be a business savvy. You're my manager. Don't touch the art. I'm only doing the art, right? I'm not going to touch the business,
Mm-hmm.
right? Why?
Yeah.
Is she not creative? She's super creative, right? Do I not understand business? Why not? What if I went to school? What if I majored in business? I could be both a business person and a great artist, right? Like she could be also an artist. She could be, you know what I mean? Like,
Definitely.
why do we like separate the two? And it's like church and state. And that's where problems happen, right? Because what if the manager is like a bad person? What if the manager's stealing? What if the manager's this? So you telling your manager, don't put me on the emails. Oh, you kind of just, right?
Yeah.
You see managers do shady stuff. Like
Yeah.
that?
Oh my God. All day.
Such as.
I mean, managers have stolen from their artists, right? Managers have taken tons of opportunities that they didn't deserve and didn't tell their artists about it. Managers have poached artists from other managers. I mean, we're human, right? Like, I haven't done those things.
Yeah.
You haven't done those things, right? But like,
No.
it's just like anything else. It's just like me asking you, do you know any like lawyers that are shiesty? And you go,
Yeah.
hella
Right,
lawyers that are
right.
shiesty, right?
And on that, and also going back to the red flags from an artist perspective, if you have deep connections with certain people on your team and you feel that you have a manager that might want to be isolating you or building a new team or in some way or form pulling you away from those kind of people, going back to that discernment and that kind of like, you know, be mindful of that.
That's like the partner trying to like take you away from your friends.
Yeah. But again,
Yeah.
it goes back like being in a relationship. It really is.
Sheesh.
It's your everyday.
For sure. And I just want to clarify, just when I say, managers could be, the artist could be a bad person
Oh,
too.
yeah.
And I'm not just focusing on managers. I'm
No,
saying
yeah.
this balance is unbalanced. It's
Yeah,
broken because of all the reasons we just discussed. It's not just the manager's fault. It could be the artist's fault. They could be stealing, right? Like they're not just like perfect angels. Humans are humans, right?
Yeah.
Definitely.
That's real.
Yeah. So I want to take it to syncs, talking about syncs.
Yeah.
And the importance of that. I know you have
I saw you. I come from live music.
Yes.
Yeah, so definitely want to touch on syncs. I know a lot of artists don't even know what a synchronization even means. So
Yeah.
if you want to just explain what a synchronization is, and your role in syncs. And I also want you to touch on sort of what an artist should do to prepare for a sync.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Cool.
So,
Yeah. Okay. So synchronization means taking audio, synchronizing it in time with a visual medium. So that could be a YouTube video, that could be a video game, that could be like the TVs and like the yellow cabs, the hybrid, of course, that's also film and TV, right? So when music is synchronized to a visual medium, that is called sync, right? So there's sync licensing. And so it's intellectual property, right? And music has two sets of copyrights. There's the sound recording copyright. We used to call it the master. I try not to. I just think that's a really crappy word, but it's the actual recording, right? So that has a copyright that's typically owned by.
Why are you against master?
Huh?
Why are you against master?
Because we live in a digital world and there's no like.
Okay.
Yeah.
It comes from master and slave, right? Like in terms of copying a tape over. Right?
is
but
that-
in the
yeah.
digital format, like your MP3 and the copy of it is identical.
Okay.
Right. And
Got
it's
you.
it just also is just like a negative connotation. And it's not to be confused with like the engineering term to master something. Right.
Okay,
But the
yeah, that
proper
makes
term
sense.
for it is sound recording copyright. Right. And that's the recording. And that could be owned by the artists themselves. That could be owned by the record label, which is who owned it traditionally. It could also be split. It could be owned by multiple parties. And then there's the publishing, which is the copyright to the actual song, to the lyrics, to the intangible. Right. So for an artist to and the way it works is it's sort of like a kind of like a free market, right? There's no set rate, right? So depending on the budget that the music supervisor has, a music supervisor is someone that oversees the synchronization and the curation of audio to that visual project, right? So you could be a music supervisor for a film, for a television show, for a video game, and it's your job to find music and license it, right? Acquire the synchronization rights for that piece of music to this piece of film or TV. So in order to do that, you're the buyer, right? And the artists are the sellers, right? So in order to do that, you reach out to the artist and you go, hey, Eliza, I really like that song you put up on SoundCloud. It will work perfectly in this scene of this show that I'm working on. And I have this amount of money because there's no set rate. right? So if you're Simon and Garfunkel, if you're the Beatles, you can first of all say no, and they are not able to use your song, right? It's not an automatic yes. Not only do they have to say yes, but everyone who owns the sound recording copyright, you have to add that up to 100%, right? Everyone has to agree to those terms and say yes, and everyone who owns the publishing.
Any artist, a feature, any producer.
Any artist, feature, producer, any co-writer, anyone that has any. So you have to add it up to 200%. They all have to agree to the terms. The terms are how much of the song is being used, how is it being used? Is it like background vocals or is it the theme song? Because there's a difference, right? In terms of recognition and exposure, right? And then the length, right? And then where will this play? Will this play overseas? Is this universe? Is this, what is this, right? Like, is this a video game? Will this be only released for 6 months because it's a commercial? Was this a movie? Is this going in the trailer? Is this going to sell tickets to a movie, right? So all these things have varying degrees of how you value it. And it needs to be valued from both sides. Like, the music supervisor has to say, hey, I have a budget and I have $100 for this song. And I need to know if 50 can go to the publishers and the other 15 can go to the sound recording copyrights, right?
Is that how they usually split it? I never really...
Typically, that's called a most favored nation split. It's usually split in half. It doesn't have to be split in half.
Okay.
Commonly, it is split in half.
Yeah.
Right? But this ranges...
It's not which side would get more money.
It really depends. It depends on who quotes, right? But then it has to be proportional to that pie, right? So sometimes the publisher can get more. So an example of when the publisher will get more than the sound recording copyright is a cover of a really well-known song.
Okay.
So in a Beatles cover, what's more valuable? The publishing.
Yeah.
Because anyone can kind of do that cover. You're not even getting the original recording, right? You're getting someone's recording of it, their interpretation of it, their cover version of this, right? So they'll get a little bit.
It's a great example.
Yeah,
right? And like the publishers to the
Yeah.
Beatles would get a lot. Now, again, this is not an automatic yes. It's also not an automatic no. Every party has to agree to it. Every party has to come to the table. It's probably one of the areas remaining in copyright and music that is sort of like, it allows creators to have some value and name their own price to an extent. It has to be reasonable. It has to work within a budget, right? There's TV shows and projects that like should never go after a song from the Beatles. They can't afford it, right? It's more than their entire budget, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, in certain cases, such as television, commercials, right? Movies, not in America, but outside of America, there's royalties on the back end, right?
Facts.
So if a song of yours gets into a show and that show is popular and that show gets syndicated, you will have royalties coming in.
Syndicated?
Meaning it goes to, like, for example, like
Picked up.
it's picked up on other channels, right?
Okay.
Like Seinfeld is on like some channel everywhere, but someone, NBC owns it and they licensed it to other apps and networks and stuff like that. And now you have all these streaming apps. That's kind of like syndication, right? So if you have a song and it starts to continue to live in all these different platforms and all these different channels, you're going to see your royalties on your BMI statement. You're going to see your royalties on your ASCAP statement and such. Yeah.
Yo, shout
So I
out,
hope that answers the question. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a great breakdown. I'll just one add on to that. Shout out Gummy Beats. Y'all know who he
He
is?
informs a lot about, he keeps it real.
Never heard
He
of
puts every producer on to sync licensing, saying, "Hey, if you want the bag as a producer, this is the best way to do it."
It's the best way to do it. Yeah. But producers have to be careful, right? Because if you sample something, you don't own it. Right? That's a chunk out of that pie. And it's a chunk out of both pies. It's a chunk out of the sound recording copyright pie. It's a chunk out of the publisher's pie. And if a music supervisor wants to use your beat with a sample, we now together have to go clear that sample.
Or rewrite it.
Or rewrite it. But if you rewrite it,
It's not the same.
you could re-sing it,
Yeah.
right? But the publishing's still there. You have to go clear the
Right,
publishing.
right.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Definitely makes sense.
And especially in hip hop, it's very, it's very difficult to recreate a sample in hip hop. It just doesn't have that same feel. You can sample drums, right? And like, all right, let's go replay them. Get the best drummer ever.
Yeah.
They will never play it just the way that sounds. And that's, you know what I'm saying? Like the way someone did it on a machine or something, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's just not the same. And it's hard to replay that. It's not the same feeling. It's not the same vibe. It's not the same thing.
Yeah.
So it's
Makes sense.
difficult, right? It's difficult, but it happens. There's samples that get cleared all the time, even from like, difficult parties like Prince, like notoriously was on the do not clear list everywhere.
Oh, yeah?
He knew not to go after a Prince song
Really?
because he just would say no.
Yeah.
He's just like, no, I have, I have no control creatively, and
couple people
I don't want it
like
in your
this.
TV show, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like you don't.
He's probably the most known. I'd say.
He's the one of the most known. Like you just know
notorious
not
for
to.
that?
Yeah. And there's ways to get around that. There's like certain rules and caveats with like live TV, where you could play a song, because if a song is heard on like a broadcast, right? If a song is heard during a football game, that's synchronization. That still needs to be cleared. If it's played during the Tonight
Wait,
Show,
at a football game?
anything on television.
Oh, on television.
Anything,
Okay,
right?
okay, gotcha.
Anything on
Okay.
television is a synchronization, because remember, television is the visual medium,
Yeah.
and you're hearing audio on it. It was synchronized, right? It's the marching band playing. It's a college football game, right? They still need to go clear that song, whatever the marching band is playing. There's a little bit of like a loophole.
Oh, I never thought about that.
Yeah, there's a
So,
legal
yeah.
loophole where it's just like ephemeral use, where if it only airs once, if it was just a live
Right.
broadcast.
It goes back to the purpose of why it's.
Yeah. So if it only airs once and you do not re-air it, you're good. You don't have to go out.
You said
and
fair use. That's what
It's not fair use. No, it's called ephemeral use.
ephemeral.
Yes, ephemeral.
I've never
Yeah,
heard of
it means
that.
it happened once and that was it. And so sometimes they've gotten away with that. And sometimes if you watch certain shows that have been like recut or whatever, like remade, you'll see they put a different song in that. Sometimes you might be watching a game from another period of time, and a different song was placed in it and they got that from a library or something, right? Because
Okay.
we can't go clear this. The marching band played whatever they played.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But we can insert this song in there because we got it. We got
Okay.
it legitimate.
for sure.
Huh.
What are you gonna say?
It just kind of reminded me of that Jimi Hendrix movie that Andre 3000 was playing Jimmy, but then they actually couldn't use the Jimi Hendrix music.
Oh, yeah?
Did you see that?
No, I did not know that.
Interesting. I don't know how they got to that
Andre
point.
3000 played Jimi Hendrix?
Incredible
Wow.
placement there with Andre.
Interesting.
Yeah. No, but there's
But
this amazing documentary called The Wrecking Crew.
oh yeah,
And it was about
on
this
Netflix.
it's about this band, a session band on the West Coast. They played for everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone throughout the 70s and 80s. This documentary took 10 years to be released. They had to go clear
For
all
clearing
those
music?
songs they played for the biggest
Nightmare.
acts of that era.
Wow.
Which is kind of crazy, right? Because it's a documentary. It's not fair use. It's going to be played on Netflix. There's money behind it, right? There's money being generated on it. So, but to answer the second part of your question, I think in order to prepare, if you're an artist
just
and a
about to ask
creator,
you that,
in order
yeah.
to prepare for sync opportunities, you need to know where all your rights are. You need to know, did I sample this? If I did, how do I go
That's
clear
the
the
first.
sample, right?
Did I sample
Who
this?
owns
Yeah.
owns what? Do I have co-writers? Okay, if I have co-writers, did we figure out our splits?
Mhm.
Right?
the
What if I
split.
got a beat off of BeatStars or off of YouTube and I'm just like, how do I go about clearing that?
That's difficult.
Yeah.
So you don't own
Yeah.
it. You have
Yeah.
to go to the original, whoever, you don't own it.
or
right?
make something that's.
And if you do own it, if they sell it to you, you need that paperwork that says,
Yeah.
I'm transferring the rights of this to you on both the recording and the publishing side, right? You need to know you need to be able to answer for both pies. You need to be able to answer for 200%. And you need to, you also, I'm real sorry. I'm just
You
gonna
got
finish.
it. Yeah.
You need to have, a high res version, right? So like you have your MP3, but you need to have like the wave and the AFF, right?
yeah.
You also should have an instrumental only version. And that's because editors are the ones that are cutting your song
Yeah.
to the visual, and it
Okay.
helps an editor having to have the instrumental because they can do more with that.
Gotcha.
Right? So it's important to have instrumentals. It's important to know where the rights are, who owns what. Can you even clear it? Because maybe you can't. If you can't clear it,
don't.
you should
You're
not
wasting
tell a
everybody's
music
time.
supervisor you can clear it.
Yeah.
You're going to get in a lot of trouble. Number one. Number two, they will never come back to you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Burn a bridge
And like
right
no
there.
one will come back to you, right? Because
Yeah.
copyright violations are
Yeah.
insane.
And it's
Yeah.
kind of carelessness to not be able to just know if you are or aren't. That's the first question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like, do you know where your rights are?
Would you ever tell an artist, "Hey, steer away from a beat that has samples in it"?
Of course.
Yeah. I don't want to deal with that mess.
You like how we both were like,
Why are you surprised with that answer?
Bro, like I'm a producer, right? Like I made beats for years. That's how I got started. I started podcasting because I wanted to meet more artists to work with and shit. Like that's how this whole thing came to light. It's more than that, but just in general, like, damn, that's like from a producer standpoint, that's hurtful. But I understand it.
They can't.
I get it.
I mean,
Yeah.
no, but just to manage your expectation, don't not sample creatively. Sample creatively. That just might be very difficult to clear for sync.
Yeah.
It could still be a
so-
great record.
And it doesn't mean that you
Yes.
can't put your stuff out. You could put it on SoundCloud or somewhere
You
where.
would on SoundCloud,
But I
yeah.
also-
maybe
Nobody's
not
gonna press
YouTube,
you
that's
until
No,
like
fingerprinting.
yeah.
not YouTube, but like nobody's gonna press you if it's just on Apple Music, and if you got like a couple thousand streams, like most likely it's like
Yeah, but if it takes
Yeah.
off,
yeah,
God
if it
forbid
takes
the
off.
song does
Yeah.
well, right?
That's-
And someone might call and be like, you sampled this, and that. And
Yeah.
You didn't call us.
and now we're gonna take everything.
Yeah, I know an artist who used to mix up a lot of jazz music. Her name's Melanie Charles, and she actually ended up getting an album deal with Verve Records because they recognized how she was able to take samples and make them so uniquely hers that they gave her access to their entire library of artists. And so she just released an album called Y'all Don't Really Care About Black Women, and it pays homage to a lot of the jazz female artists. And I thought it was a really cool way for someone like a label to be like, we see what you're doing and we're not going to like slap you on the wrist for that. We're actually going to elevate you by giving you access to the whole library. So there are some times where that is actually just your thing, and not to say that that's her whole like thing and she's just samples, but someone saw that and was like, I want to empower and uplift that, you know?
Yeah.
So
Fire.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's also there's producers who are notorious. They're super dope hip hop producers. They're notorious for like disguising their samples. Like they'll flip it
Playing
in a way where
backwards.
like
there's just no way
you won't
can
recognize it.
Yeah.
And I won't recognize it. You know it's a sample.
Yeah.
And then the owners of the sample won't recognize it. So they're good.
Yeah.
No one.
I've had to do
I don't want to name them,
playbacks
but they're really good.
where it's like I'm sitting with the artist and they're getting requests for things to clear, and I'm like, she's like, is that me? Like we literally have to go in there and be like, is that you still? Like it's so hard to
you?
hear.
That's crazy.
Are there any
I gotta pay so bad.
services-
You got it, bro.
Are there any services that you guys recommend for finding syncs? I know there's a lot of companies that sort of pitch themselves as like, we're going to bridge the gap. You send us their song and we're going to be like sort of, do you know of any that
Yeah,
you've seen
yeah.
have success?
You mean reps? People that rep you as an artist for sync
Sure.
opportunities?
Yeah,
Is that
whatever,
what you meant, or-
whatever type of service or company or that you could think of. Like if there's anything you could speak on, I'm like, if I'm an artist, is there something that I could use to help me get a sync opportunity?
Yeah, I mean, so there's libraries that will like accept your music.
Yeah.
And they'll probably take like 50% or more. Some of those are exclusive, some of those are non.
How do the libraries work usually?
So
You sell them your song
You pre-clear
and-
it.
Yeah.
You pre-clear it. You say, here's who owns everything. I'm speaking on behalf of all the owners,
Mhm.
200%, right? I'm okay with these terms. Okay, 50-50. Anytime a sync comes in, you're going to send me 50%, right? And
Okay.
you're going to rep this for me. The point of a library is they have a lot, right?
Mhm.
They have every BPM, they have every mood, and they allow music supervisors to go in and just literally search for that. Like, I need something that sounds suspenseful, or I need something that will be good for a comedy, and I need it to be at this BPM, and I need it to, and they'll pull something up and they'll go one click, right? And because it's been pre-cleared through that library.
Yeah.
The only thing to be concerned with there is there's this sort of like connotation with library music that it's like not cool,
Uh-huh.
right? That
Okay.
It's just like, ugh.
So, but people wouldn't really know that you have a song in a library,
Yes.
right? So
You could do that. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Now there's like boutique representation agencies, right? That like will not take everyone, right? They'll only take
Okay.
a few select artists, and they're like, you still have to pre-clear it with them. You still have to say, okay, these 3 songs that I gave you, you're allowed to pitch them. Here's our split. Maybe it's not 50-50. They might take like 40-30. You get the
Okay.
rest.
yeah.
But it's boutique. They had to like listen to your music. It's kind of like their A&Rs, right?
So you're
They-
saying like the first kind of feels a bit more like algorithmy, and the second one is a bit more like personal with the placement and the relationships.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So those are a little bit more difficult because you have to have that personal relationship, like you said, and then they have to like believe in the music, right? They have to be like, oh, we can get some syncs on this, right?
Are there any ones off the top of mind that are accessible? Like if I'm an artist and I'm like, oh, I never heard of syncs. I never considered that. Let me go to this site or company. Any of them that you can think of?
Gosh, I can't think of any. Can you think of anything off the top to learn about syncs?
To get submitted to a library, let's say.
That's a really good question.
Yeah, but you can probably just Google it and
Yeah,
find a
yeah,
couple,
yeah,
right? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
there's great libraries out there.
Mm-hmm.
All the big publishers have their own. Like, there's Extreme's a great library. It's the name of the library, right? There's
Okay.
there's boutique there's boutique agencies that rep the music as well, but like everyone in that ecosystem kind of has a certain expectation that like you need to be somewhat educated on sync.
Yeah.
Which you could totally do. All the resources are available online. Like you need to understand the terms, the splits. You need to know. I would say that's the first step is just read up on it. There's tons of material online.
Yeah.
Understand it first, because if you don't understand it first, and when I say understand it, like, yes, understand it conceptually, but also understand it like, what is your music? Is it ready for sync? Do you have these things? Is everything cleared? Is everything taken care of? Right.
It goes back to being able to represent yourself.
Can you represent
in
yourself?
a business?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And being able to understand like what your music is and where it fits.
Yeah.
And you can have those conversations, can have a bigger vision of where your project, your music belongs.
Building off of that, in terms of representing yourself, like, is there an opportunity that you feel like an artist should turn down a sync? If I'm a small artist and they offer me, let's say, $300, I feel like that, and it's going to be on a Netflix show. How would you go about that if you were an artist, do you think?
Turn it down if it doesn't align with your creative vision and your values.
Yeah.
Right? If it's a bad Netflix show, right? And you don't want to be associated with a bad Netflix show for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's just not your thing. It's just this show is not about what I'm about, right?
Yeah.
Then don't do it.
Yeah.
Then don't do it, because it's forever there.
Yeah.
Right? If it's a commercial for a product that you don't support, or
okay, yeah.
In politics, right? Like politicians use music all the time that they don't clear, and then they start getting sued and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So like that's loaded, but like you might not support that person,
Right.
Or that campaign. You might not support, I don't know, Walmart for whatever reason. You might not want to be associated with McDonald's if everything, that could be a nice check and opportunity. But if everything about your lifestyle as an artist, as a creative, is all about healthy and wellness and stuff, that kind of doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would say turn it down based on that.
Mm-hmm.
Don't turn it down based on money. I mean, if it's a song that's been, if you've already made all the money in the world, then I think that's a different conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Uptown Funk was synced everywhere
Yeah.
for a lot of money. And at some point they started saying, well, it's just too much.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need the money, right? It's just too much. We're going to just dilute this song, right? Like,
Yeah. And I think,
is that true or not? Who knows, right?
Yeah.
I was going to say, I think it goes back to, are you doing something for the expectations of something else, or is this really going to uplift what you're doing? If this speaks to you, then, you might say, well, it's a little bit less than what I wanted, but I really like this organization. I really like the people the message that they're bringing. And if it doesn't, I would say don't, but always go with that, am I aligned with this? Do I resonate with that?
Yeah. Makes sense.
One more thing I want to get into. First of all, we have this jar. We call it the jar of deep ass questions. Lots of questions related to the music industry.
I
and
love
life
it.
in general. But one more thing I wanted to ask.
play a game.
Kind of goes back to the manager conversation we had. You mentor a lot of people.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Can you explain just real quick, like what you do as a music mentor, and if that's something that you think artists should seek out?
Yeah, I think mentorship should exist everywhere. I just try to give back, because I just remember what it was like for me. I was cold emailing people, and the people I remember today are the ones that answered my emails. Right? And I'll never forget that, because they didn't have to do that. Right? And so then we built a relationship, and that was my mentor. And so to me, it's just like giving back. If someone reaches out and they're respectful and they're cool and like they just have a question, why not answer it? If they're asking you,
You don't charge for that?
No.
Wow.
No.
That's called consulting.
That is true. That is definitely true.
I don't charge for it, right? I mean, if they're asking me to do work, that's different. But if
Right.
they're
Yeah,
asking me for,
An ear advice.
if it's just like a call,
God,
or
I'd have a tab with you if that was the case.
if someone just, they're asking you for coffee, and it's, you can, why not, right? Or you have the time, you can make it, why not? And if you can't make it, it's a call, or I guess during the pandemic, it's a Zoom or whatever, right? It could just be an email, and you just, oh, this is how it works, and you should try this and check this out. Like, it's a little bit of my time, right? But it's so worth it, because it's just like, hey, I'm giving back and I'm paying forward. I'm doing both.
Yeah.
And I think there's something really important that a lot of people aren't going to tell you, which is like, I was telling my last intern this. I was like, don't be fooled by how valuable you are. I was like, I don't even refer to you as my intern. I won't even, because you provide me so much more than that. And the thing is that my company, of course, can be, with the organizations that run all of the colleges and organizations and whatever it is to get in touch, but they're not on the ground like that student is. They're not going to the shows and interacting with the people on the ground floor and have that access to information that I need to know what's trending, what they're looking at, like what they're following. And so it's not just of like, oh, I don't want to waste this person's time, or like this person's so busy and important. Like, you're valuable to that person, and having that relationship gives that mentor so much more relevance than that mentee gives themselves credit for, because it goes back to gatekeeping. People of this older generation don't want you to understand that value, because they've gotten to a point where they have nowhere else to go. So all they look at is you coming for their throne.
You're a throne.
And they're not done with their throne yet. So they will try, in a lot of cases, that sounds manipulative, but oftentimes people in those positions feel threatened by what the younger generation does know. So I would say, like, don't be afraid to approach people that you feel inspired by, that you'd like to link with, even if you're just hitting them up in DM, like, yo, I'd love to connect. I'd love to take you out for coffee. You always taught me that, like, ask them out for coffee. Like, what are they going to say now? Like, take them out for coffee. Yeah, but don't ever be intimidated of, you're reaching out to them because you're inspired, you're impacted by their work and what they are, and the philosophy of what they do. So I remember you also saying this too. You were like, to an extent, people love to talk about themselves. So it's like,
what do you think we're doing right now?
He was like,
what do you
I'm
think
sure
we're
they're
doing
going to
at
say,
this very moment?
but
there, can I just? There's also this misconception, I think, for if you're considering, should I mentor people, right? You kind of might think to yourself, well, I haven't really made it. Not yet. I'm on my way. Like, you're on your way to being a lawyer, right? So you might be like, wait a second, how can I mentor someone younger than me that wants to find that same path? Yeah. And I'm not a lawyer yet, but you should. Yeah. And the reason you should is because you're only a few steps down the road.
Yeah.
Tell them where the landmines were.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you went 10 steps down the road, be like, yo, watch out for that rock and watch out for that. Yeah. You know what I mean?
I love the way you put that.
And so, and it's just like, and then there's people who get to the very top. To use another analogy, there's people who get to the very top of the building and they forget to send the elevator back down. Yeah. And no one can get back up top, right? But what I'm trying to say is, you don't have to be at the top of the building. You can be on floor 5, send the elevator down to someone on floor 3. Let them get to 4. Let them get to 5, right?
Like, definitely.
Like just that. You don't have to be the expert. I'm nowhere near where I want to be in my career in life, right? But like, I have already taught and I've given back, and I feel like that's the right thing to do. So you don't have to be where you think you want to be in order to give back. You can just give back as you go.
It's not about the accolades or the titles. It's really about, we're all out here finding relatability in the human experience. We all have wins, we have vulnerable moments, we have loses, we have losses, and it's all about talking to people from varying backgrounds and having that kind of relatability and understanding this bigger picture and how to best kind of move about it that way.
100%.
That's how I look at it.
Very well said.
So what's in the jar?
What you got in the jar?
We're gonna get the jar.
Who writes these questions?
Yes. All right, so we're gonna ask the questions.
Cool.
We're gonna take out 4.
Great.
We're gonna ask 2 each.
Okay.
Go with that.
We might want to do 1 each because we're a little above an hour right now already.
It's okay.
Yeah?
I think we'll have time. Yeah, this is a great interview. I feel like we could talk.
Yeah, no, definitely. I know we can definitely. I'm just been letting you guys talk. I'm been letting you guys take the reins more than usual, just listening. So this is a good one for
Okay. I'm excited.
We love games.
Yes.
This question we've asked too many times. I'm gonna pick a different one.
Fair.
We want.
Yeah, what it is like, we don't mix it up. We just throw it on top.
I went in.
At least when I
need a solid shuffle for sure.
I bet you start us off.
Okay. We've asked this one too many times. It's just asked too many times. It's all right. Okay. All right. We've asked this one a couple times, but I like it. All right. What has been the best and worst decisions y'all have made in your careers?
Oh my goodness. You go first. The best and worst decisions?
Yes, best and worst.
Of your career?
Yes.
Oh, it's therapy time. Okay. All right, we're going to just spill the guts here. The best and worst. Do you have an answer?
One of them.
I think the best decision that I've ever made was to walk away from a job multiple times
Bloomberg?
because they were fucking with my money. Don't fuck with my money. I've never regretted walking away if someone fucked with my money or was late on paying me out. And I've never looked back on like, don't fuck with my money. That's one.
Respect.
That's the best. And I think the worst is when you're in a room and you wanted to contribute to a conversation, whether that's your thought or idea, your voice, support yourself, support someone else. And then you just like, don't know what to do. Maybe you don't know how to handle the juggling of the conversation or the weird air in the room, or you don't want to assert yourself. And then you spend like the rest of the week or however long, depending on who you are, just, I would have said this and that. If I should have said it. And then your mom's like, you know what you should have said. And you're like, damn it. I'm thinking about that now.
Invoke the mom.
Yeah, you know?
It happens.
Those are my answers.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, the best, I have a specific answer and like a generic answer, right? So the specific answers for the best, I think the best decision I've ever made in my career was saying yes to the opportunity of becoming a teacher at 28.
Best.
When the Clive Davis Institute folks approached me because I could have said no, I should have said no. I'm like, I've never taught before. I'm only 28. I haven't really accomplished, you know what I mean? Like, what am I doing? And because I was like, okay, put fear to the side. There's mentors involved here. There's going to be people that can show me the ropes. Just go do it and see what happens, right? And it was like the best 7 years of my career in terms of that trajectory. I think the worst decisions, plural, that I've made in my career, and this is going to be the more generic answer, is not leaving soon enough.
That was a good one, buddy.
Not leaving soon enough.
Yeah.
A business relationship, right?
Yeah.
Maybe an artist-manager relationship. I'm speaking generically here. Or an opportunity, right? A place, a thing, not leaving soon enough. Like, I don't know where I got this from.
I think of so many examples. You're speaking so
There's
general.
so
and I'm
many
just
examples of that.
Yeah.
But I think like, I obviously didn't make this up. I heard this somewhere. And someone said, leave the party, not when the party's over. And I know it's like party. Okay, are we partying yet? Like, you know, we've been in lockdown for, right? Leave the party, not when the party's over, not when it's like, all right, we got to clean this place up. The cops showed up, whatever. Again, I'm only speaking metaphorically here. Leave the party during your favorite song. Like the DJ just played this is my jam. I love it. Leave right after that. Leave before the song ends. Like Irish goodbye.
Huh.
Don't say bye to anyone. Bounce.
Yeah.
Irish goodbye.
Right? And I mean this, again, this is figurative talk. I don't mean like literally leave the party and don't say goodbye. That's rude and you won't get invited back, right? What I'm saying is like, leave that situation, whatever that situation is. It might be a gig. It might be a role. It might be an internship. It might be a job. It might be a business relationship. It might be an opportunity. It might be whatever. Leave on the high note. Don't wait for that note to potentially get low.
Or at least maybe when it's going like maybe your second favorite song, like because if it's like the peak, you don't want to leave at like the peak.
Leave at the peak.
The peak.
You know why? You know why?
Why?
Because the next day I'm gonna be like, "Yo, how was that party?"
Yeah.
What are you gonna say?
Yeah.
It peaked.
Yeah.
Am I right? You will have not one negative thing to say. You're like, it peaked.
Yeah.
You're like, it was
I can't argue
awesome.
that. I ain't gonna lie.
I have nothing bad to say about it, right? How was that job? I left when I accomplished that thing and everyone high-fived me. And I said, I'm going to go over here and find that next opportunity. I'm going to leverage the heat of this. I'm not going to stay longer because someone promised me something. I'm not going to stay longer because I think this is going to lead to something because things happen, right?
Do not stay on promises.
Right? And that's a lot of the business is built on that. But it's just, and I'm saying this to just kind of challenge that notion. Like, no, leave before that third verse ends.
Yeah.
Like, leave on your favorite song. Don't say goodbye. I'm out. Take a cab, an Uber, go home, get a egg and cheese in the the deli before you know what I mean? Like, go see your friend, whatever, right? Because then if someone goes, how was that opportunity? You will only have a smile related to it. You won't wonder, oh, did it get better? No, it didn't get better. I left when it was the best. Or leave when you think it's the best.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very unique advice for sure.
I stayed too long in too many things because I thought something else will come. And I thought, oh, but so-and-so promised me this, and the third, right? Oh, nope, it didn't happen. They left. No, everything's different now.
And
the
no one
world,
cares.
the world changed. No one cares. Right? And I tried to kind of like tell myself, okay, leave when it's hot. You won't regret it.
Yeah, definitely. All right. What's your worst fear in your career?
Oh my goodness.
This is therapy.
Literally. Okay, you go first.
My worst fear. I would say it is kind of I guess it's not like my worst fear, but I would say like one of the major fears. I'm not typically like a fearful person, but I would say something that has me sometimes kind of vulnerable and questioning myself is like when I get really invested in listening to an artist's project or vision, whether it's an album or a rebrand, and then I go back and I do my first kind of like mood boards or sketches of like how I translate that into a merch line or a tour or an album design or whatever it is. Sometimes there's like this fear where you're just like, fuck, is this gonna like hit it on the head or are they gonna question if I really get them? You know, sometimes there's a fear in my own, but it's, I don't know, it's something that you kind of work out because you're just like, let me know either way. And if you have a good relationship with that artist, they're gonna be honest and open of like, well, I like that, but I'd rather it in black and white. Or I'd like that tour, but quadruple the size, you know, or I like the merch, but I want all hoodies or whatever it is. But yeah, sometimes that kind of feel you're like, do I have it? It's kind of like questioning your own like
Yeah.
But there's a thrill to like really engaging in that challenge of being like, okay, I get exactly what you mean and I really fucking mean it. Like this is what it looks like, you know.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So sometimes
I
it's like a self-fear rather than I'm afraid of
Self-fear,
others. It's like my own.
Yeah.
Those
I
really
respect that.
Definitely.
Okay.
This might sound crazy. I think my worst fear is not making an impact.
It's valid.
And it's just, that doesn't mean financial or
Yeah.
whatever, right? It doesn't mean we can even measure it, but just
is
like,
it gonna hit?
Like just being forgotten.
you know, I was involved in a project and just, I made no impact, right? What was I doing there? Why did, you know what I mean? Like that's kind of like,
Yeah.
I don't know if
definitely.
that's just like
Goes back to
childhood.
purpose.
It goes back to purpose. Yeah, maybe that's just like childhood programming or like whatever. But like, if I'm working on something, I want to know that I helped. I want to know that I contributed. I don't need credit. Absolutely not. I do not need like an award. I don't need. I mean, a bonus would be good. You know what I mean? Like, I'm kidding, but like, I don't need an actual thing that says you made an impact. I don't need like a thing on the wall. I don't need someone to even say it, because I think when you make an impact, you can feel it. It doesn't require recognition, right? I don't care if you recognize it. I just need to recognize it. I just need to know that you and I were involved in a project, and I didn't. My input and time wasn't just wasted, right? It helped. It contributed. It brought value, brought something to the table, right? That's what I mean by impact.
Okay.
Definitely makes sense.
That's valid.
This therapy session's going
I
so
know.
well.
I
I feel
know.
better already.
I think we should just do one more because I don't want to.
Let's go.
What's
This
your
is
last question?
fun.
Let me see it.
Why do you think so many artists fail?
Oh shit.
Because they suck. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah,
All right,
we
let's
can end it with that.
So why do you guys think? Last question tonight. Why do you think so many recording artists fail?
Can I go?
Yeah.
I don't mean because they suck, but maybe it's because they suck. There's 100,000. There's 100,000 songs that are
I was about to go about
ingested
feelings.
into.
I feel like they suck.
They suck. No. But hear me out. I just read this the other day. There's now I remember
I saw
like
this.
teaching this in a few years ago, right? Only there's like 20,000 songs get uploaded to Spotify a week. Next semester, 40,000 songs get uploaded to Spotify a week. As of last week, there's 100,000 songs that get ingested into the digital streaming services per day.
What?
Yeah.
You don't need to.
God damn.
You
It's gonna
don't
be
need
like 30 years for someone
I
to
thought it was
listen to-
60. Jeez.
Yeah.
per day. Now,
Yeah.
there's 7 days in the week. Those things are open. They're not like, and you don't have to release music Thursdays at midnight, which is Friday.
Yeah, Fridays,
right?
yeah.
People, in fact, are like have been doing this for the last few years. They were like, all right, maybe I'll trick the algorithm. I'll release this on a Wednesday night. You can release music at any point in time, right? You just upload it, get it onto the streaming services, and you're good. And so we cannot process 100,000 songs times 7 or even times 5, whatever you know. We can't even press 100,000 songs. You can't listen to that, right? In a day, in a whatever, right? And so I think artists fail because they either get lost in junk, right? Like you have something good, but it lives on the internet and no one knows about it, which is quite literally where music is now. I think music has been treated like it's just something that we could throw away. It's dispensable, like just like get rid of it, right?
It kind of
could
became like a commodity.
It's a commodity, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of it is just not good. Like there's great stuff. You have to find it, which is why you need curators and DJs and people with taste. But a lot of it is just not good. Let's be real. A lot of it is just not good, right? It sounds like something else. It sounds like you heard it a million times, right? And if you really think dear to your music loving heart, like your favorite stuff doesn't sound like something else. It's your favorite stuff because it's uniquely its own thing.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So I don't mean they suck. I mean like a lot of the music just is not good. There's so much of it. There's infinite choice of music. Oh, I want to go listen to this genre. Cool. I get on Spotify, I get on this infinite choice. It's just like the long tail. It keeps going down.
Yeah.
And that kind of comes with access to everything, right? And everyone's ability to create and release music. And there's no gatekeepers in terms of releasing music. There's gatekeepers in terms of getting attention on your music. But in terms of releasing music, anyone can do it. I could release silence. I could release me talking, and it's going to sit on an app, and it's going to compete with, insert your favorite artist there. And you're like, that makes no sense, right?
Yeah.
You're not a musician, right? Like,
Yeah.
I
Isaac.
I agree with a lot of that, and to answer that in my way too.
It happens.
I'm like, I think there are two things. I think one thing is not understanding who your team is. I think not understanding that you don't have the ability to do it by yourself is a big thing. You need a team, and I am a big advocate that doesn't necessarily mean having to reach up in order for opportunities. It really means reaching outwards to your peers and the people that are right next to you.
Reaching
because
across.
That's how you really come up together, because no one person can do that. And then something else that I think has come in, especially as Instagram and a lot of other platforms, social media platforms, have been so influential on what we call music and where trends and things become viral. I think there's this kind of like things are a little bit mushy between who's being led from ego and who's being led with purpose.
Right.
And so I think sometimes people just put out shit because they're like, well, this looks cool and I want money and this is the lifestyle that I want. And like, this is who I want people to portray. This is my artist kind of vibe. And this is like who I am. I'm an artiste, but
I'm an artist.
at the end of the day, it's like,
anyone that calls themselves that is not an artist.
don't do it. But then it's like, well, what's your purpose? What are you really preaching? And who are you really speaking to? And what are you making of all of these followers and all these opportunities to do and say? What are you showing? And it doesn't mean that everybody's got to be a fucking activist for what they believe, but it's like,
what do you have to say?
What do you have to say?
It's a crowded room, and what do you have to say?
You have the opportunity to, going back to human experience, how do you choose to connect with your audience? And I think a lot of people could fail where they let ego lead instead of their purpose.
That's absolutely true.
That's
and,
major.
and are you ready to compete with sports and Netflix and comedy? And you're
It's
asking
all
for
entertainment.
It's all entertainment,
Yeah.
right? And you're asking for someone's attention. You're asking them to stop what they're doing and press play or press save or add to a playlist or whatever, right? Is it good? Like, again, is it good enough to take my time away from family, friends, Netflix, millions of things that people are doing, right? It better be good.
That's real. Nah,
It better be, and good
keeping it
isn't, to me, I used to say this in the classroom all the time, good isn't enough. It needs to be great.
That's
It
some
needs to be
facts.
amazing. It needs to stop me dead in my tracks. Like, wait, What is this? Shazam. Like Shazam's a really important app, right?
Shout out
Hell
Shazam.
yeah.
Do they sponsor the podcast?
Hopefully one day. Hopefully one day. We'll get there. We only got 700 something subs. Subscribe to the channel. You feel me? But yeah.
The reason that Shazam is really, really important is because think about it. You're hearing a song somewhere. You're at a coffee shop, Starbucks, I don't know, radio, and it's not displaying the name of the song. And you're like, wait, what is this? What is it? What song is this? And no one around you knows. So you take out your phone.
Yup.
You open Shazam. If you don't have Shazam, you're going to go download Shazam.
Yep.
You're going to press something. You're going to hold. Think of the
I think when
action.
the person in front of me is Shazamming, so I don't actually have to. I'm like,
But think of all the actions, like, it's marketing terms, like the click to action, the actions that you're taking. You just pulled out your phone, you stop what you're doing, you stop texting, you stop being on Instagram, you Shazam, you're waiting, you go wait, and then you added to like, because it's, integrated with Apple Music or Spotify, right? Then you added to your thing. Like you have just taken several more actions than someone that just passively walks by a song.
That's a fact.
That grabbed your attention in a world where it's just like, gosh, everything is so crazy and insane. And like, how do I get your attention, right? But I just got it with my song.
That's real.
That meets that filter. That meets that test.
Wow. Okay.
The Shazam test.
The Shazam test. That's real.
you always know when someone's Shazamming too because they're like this.
Oh, they don't want you. Yeah. But honestly, I gave up on that. I'm like, you know what? Sometimes it's an obvious song, and I'm like, I'm gonna Shazam it, and I'm gonna be not afraid to do it. So I just go do this, and I just hold up my phone. I'm like, I don't care who knows that I don't know this song.
Nah, but to be honest, like this was such a dense, informative, dope interview.
It's over.
I
We're
really
just getting
appreciate it.
started.
Yeah, I know. We could talk for hours. We really
yeah.
could, but just we have to keep it digestible for our audience. So
Gotcha.
thank you for coming through.
Appreciate it.
Could
That's a
y'all
pleasure.
both yes, absolutely. Could y'all both tell the people where to find y'all on social media?
Sure. At Marat Berenstein on all platforms. Marat.
Damn, that's nice. You just have your name like
BER.
That's rare.
Yeah.
But
And you?
I too.
You do have socials. You do have the socials.
I am usually. I don't really post much, but I'm probably easiest to get in touch with through Instagram at Eliza Berse, Eliza.
That's the best way where a younger person can reach out and say,
Berse.
can you mentor me?
yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Which I love to get those.
Good.
Sometimes it takes a little bit. They're in my request box, but I love them.
Yeah.
That's real.
Yeah.
So, I know you learned something from this podcast. I know you laughed. I know you got some game from it. So
Cried.
please subscribe to the channel. Yeah, 100%.
I know you cried.
Tap in with us, tap in with them. Is there any way that, I know you're mentoring, but like, is there anything you want to promote to other people who might see this interview right now? I don't think they're going to Saudi Arabia.
2022, November 28, 29, 30, Riyadh, Saudi Arabia.
If you got the bag, if you got the bag, and you want to go to Saudi Arabia.
Through. There's also a music festival happening directly after that. It's called Soundstorm. Tickets are on sale probably in a few days.
There you go.
It's what I'm involved with right now, so naturally it's what I want to promote. But yes, it's music education in all seriousness, and it's a really, really cool festival. If I don't see you guys out there, I'll tell you all about it. And maybe you'll come out next year.
That's real. So thank you for watching. We'll be back shortly with another dope episode. Once again, please subscribe. And with that being said, we out of here.
Peace.
Woo! Thank you.
That was fine.
That was awesome.
That was amazing.
Thank you, guys.
Personality.
Thanks.
You guys have such a